Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a short little knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Real Steel Solis, which is a slip joint. And let me tell you, I don't usually do this at the beginning of the review, but this is a $29 knife. And it's also a very, very good design. It reminds me of the Luna, a little bit different, but yeah, this is a good knife. There's really very little to complain about here. I'm gonna link it right down below so you guys can check it out. But at $29, it's really, really hard to argue against it. If you don't like non-locking knives, then this might not be for you. But anybody who likes slip joints, especially modern slip joints, this is really, really nice. So thank you so much to Real Steel for sending this in for me to take a look at. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. I'll make sure that this is linked down below. Let's get through specs really easily here. Sorry, you're gonna hear some pounding upstairs, and that's because my wife is chopping food. The overall length is about 6.75 inches. The blade length here is right at 3 inches. Cutting edge is coming in at 2.75. The fact that this is not a locking knife will make it very, very legal for many people. So whether you live inside the United States or outside the United States, if there's an issue with locking knives or locking knives that are over a certain length or this or that, not going to be perfectly legal everywhere because of the blade length, but it is going to be very, very legal in many places. So makes for a good travel knife if you're not sure which states here in the USA allow for whatever, right? Let's go ahead and do size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2. So you can see here, it's about the same. It's a little bit shorter than the Rat 2, but as far as your cutting edge goes, it's almost exactly the same, right? It's really just a little bit of excess handle length in the Rat 2. It's extra there. How about up against the Demco AD 20.5? There we go. How about up against the Spyderco Para 3? Not too far off, and certainly, actually, maybe slightly more cutting edge than the Spyderco Para 3. And then last, but certainly not least, if I can find it, there it is, the Benchmade Bug Out, which is also just a little bit longer. How's the action on this knife? Well, it's a slip joint, but let me tell you, just like the Luna, my favorite thing about this, because my issue with slip joints is that I want to close them with one hand. Why? I don't know. It's because that's what I like to do with my locking knives, right? It's just, I want to get them out, make a cut and close them and put them away with, as safely as possible with as few movements as possible without having to screw around and think about it, right? With slip joints, I have an issue because when I apply the amount of force that's required to get it to start closing, the ones that don't have a half stop or mid stop really bother me because I often end up partially closing it into my index finger, right? Which some people say, well, that's stupid. You shouldn't. I want the knife to accommodate for me and my stupidness. But the ones that do have the half stop or mid stop, often it's even when it is, solid and has a distinct position, it's at 90 degrees, which brings the edge dangerously close to my finger anyway. This, it stops right here, which is beautiful. That's beautiful. It's at an angle. I love that so much. I am much more likely to carry something like this because it accommodates for my stupid, right? That's great. Real Steel was like, yeah, let's just put it right here. So then I can turn it and close it either with my thumb or you can turn it and close it with your index finger, right? You can do the breakaway and then you can close it with two hands if you want to. Sorry, I bumped the camera there, but that makes this just make me feel a whole lot better about these knives, right? Or whether you close it like this. Either way, it's great. And on top of that, this area is very distinct. It's snappy. There's no play once it gets to this position. No, it's solid in there. Same with the open position and snap into the closed position. Now, I'm not very good at rating the pull, right? I appreciate that we have this long fuller here so you can kind of pull it where you want to. It's pretty easy to get out, but then again, it's solid. It snaps into that closed position. That's great. This has all the elements that I look for in a slip joint, which I'll admit, slip joints are not the style that I like. So it takes a really good one to get me to go, oh, I like this. I would actually carry it. This is great. They did a great job with this. So fantastic. The actual internals, you can see in here, I believe it's phosphor bronze. And I just saw the little reflection there. Can we see? Can you guys see? I don't know if it's actually going to reflect properly. But yeah, it is running on washers. So nice. Okay, carry profile, thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3, beautifully thin, right? If you're looking for lightweight, compact, all of that, if that really matters to you, this thing is excellent. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3, yeah, this is not going to cause a problem in the pocket for the vast majority of people. Weight, it's a very lightweight knife. We're looking at 1.8 ounces of weight, which is fantastic. Really, really lightweight. And let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'll get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. We have a T8 pivot, and I think these are T6, which is fine. A couple of T6 body screws, and then the screws for the pocket clip are actually underneath, like the heads for them are going to be underneath, which is fine. I am really shocked that they did not mill out a lefty mounting position for the clip. That really just blows my mind, but they didn't do it. So if you want to take this knife apart, I don't know, there's not very many reasons to, but if you want to, it does have minimal hardware. I wish it was T8, but it's not. So as long as you have the right tools, you should be good to go. Let's measure the blade stock thickness. I don't believe this is a super duper thick blade, obviously. Blade stock thickness, yeah, a little under 90 thousandths. Pretty thin. Okay, that's everything? Yeah, all right. You know what? Let's take a look at the inside here. I think these are just G10 scales. Yeah, so it's just G10, and then you have the backspacer here, which I believe is actually, yeah, it's a metal backspacer. It's probably an aluminum backspacer. We'll see if the magnet attracts to it here real quick. Of course, there it is. Okay. Nope, steel. Okay, so there you go. I mean, but that's all the reinforcement it really needs, right? And there's, the surfaces on the inside, I'm sure, for the washers to ride on, there's also a metal surface there, which is good. But yeah, it doesn't really need much more reinforcement than that. This has peel ply textured G10, which is fine. They did a little bit of extra, nice little milling there. They also carved an area out right here and up here. It makes it a little bit easier to access. I don't know if that's really worth pointing out, right? But they could have just made this like a rectangle, and they didn't. They added a little bit of character to it, and that's nice. Ergonomically, it's great, and this pocket clip is pretty darn good. It probably could have been a little bit shorter, but I just don't want to complain too much. I mean, honestly, it's deep carry, it's got a drop, and then a little bit too much build, but it's okay, right? I mean, do I really want to complain about that? Not really. You can choke up and get right behind the edge on this thing. Obviously, you don't want to put your thumb up here. They didn't put any jimping on the spine, so there's nothing to suggest that you should be doing that. Why? Because it doesn't lock, right? But if you accidentally do, if you go, if you're alternating between locking knives and non-locking knives, and you accidentally do put your thumb up here and you bear down on it, right, and you end up putting more pressure on the spine than there is on the blade, well, right there, actually, I had my finger a little bit too high. That's a good, hey, sometimes when I screw up in a review, it's, a good, here, I did it, so now you don't have to do it. If you have your index finger too high, even with it coming here, you could still get nicked by that tiny little sharpened portion. But that nick will be substantially less bad, less deep, right? It got me just a little bit, than if the blade came to 90 degrees. So if you're about right here and you do this on accident, well, then it's stopping here and not at 90 degrees, right? Much more of the blade would connect with your finger, sorry, if that bothers people. Probably, I don't know if I should edit that out or not. But much more of the blade would be running into your finger, which you don't want, right? So still be cognizant of it, but it's another good reason to only have this going right here. That's great. The blade, simple sheep's foot blade. This one's coated. I think they have versions that are not coated. Nice and thin behind the edge. This is great. For EDC, you can still do a draw cut, right? As long as you're not, holding here and putting too much pressure up on the nose. Like if you kind of hold it like this, you'll be okay. But plenty slicey. It's got a nice tip. It'll do the draw cuts, all of that. This is D2 steel, which I think is great. Nothing wrong with D2 at all. In fact, D2 is still, plenty preferable on knives that are all the way up to about 50, 60 bucks still. So D2 is a great composition. It'll hold it a pretty good edge. It's not stainless, but it's pretty close at 12% chromium, and it's reasonably tough. Not the easiest thing in the world to sharpen, especially if it's heat treated at 61 or higher. But overall, I think it's a fine choice for something like this. So there's not really a whole lot more to talk about here. Fit and finish on the thing is really, really good. These knives are made in China, but the fit and finish is fantastic. There's a nice large lanyard slot here, which, okay, it's out of the way of everything though, so that's fine. The pocket clip, like I said, is great in and out of the pocket. Very, very easy to get in and out of the pocket. The stop is just right there. It's just the tang of the blade running into the spacer here, which is fine. There's no movement left or right. Obviously, there's movement down, but there's no wiggle or anything. Everything feels really solid. There's no pivot lash at all. And then your centering, I really thought it'd be off because everything's so thin, but no, it's on. Boy, this knife is legitimately a knife that caters to a wider audience than almost anything that I have shown on this channel. Almost anybody can make use of a knife like this. The fact that it is not a locking blade, and the fact that it is so inexpensive at $29 and is utilizing great materials for the price range. It's got a good clip. It's got reasonable ergonomics. It's even a fairly decent size. I mean, you honestly can still get a pretty darn good purchase on this thing. It's lightweight, compact. This is incredibly accommodating. I mean, this would make a great gift. It would make an excellent knife to just keep in your vehicle or in a junk drawer somewhere, or as like a secondary knife, or as a primary EDC, right? Everybody's gonna know how to operate it, right? If you have to hand this off to somebody who's like, hey, you got a knife. I mean, I know we don't like to do that because people who are not knife people like to do stupid things with knives. But if you do and they do something dumb with it, well, it's a $29 knife, right? But they're going to be able to figure out how to use it. It's not complicated. It's very, very accommodating. There's really like almost nothing to critique about this. They really have got this thing down, and it's just a good knife. I can legitimately recommend this knife to just about everybody. Just be cognizant of the things that I said. If you're gonna choke up here, don't be closing it with your finger all the way up here. You kind of still want to be back just a bit, about right here, and then you can turn and close it. But really great. This is going to go in both my cheap knives I like playlist and my most recommended knives. It really is an excellent design. Thanks again to Real Steel for sending this in for me to take a look at. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.